Hello, it is Throwback Thursday, August 17th, 2023. Steve Sipress here, throwing it back 70 years. 70 years in a couple of weeks, to be a little more precise, to the founding of the Small Business Administration, the SBA, founded at the end of July 1953 by President and former General Dwight David Eisenhower. Start of the officially what's known as the SBA loan program. However, government loans to business go even further back from that. So here's a little history lesson for you. To the best of my understanding, first during the Great Depression, so the first real huge, big, massive, and I think still the most massive economic disaster in U.S. history, the Great Depression in 1932, President Herbert Hoover put funds aside to have banks be able to loan money to businesses to help overcome the Depression. Later on, of course, FDR came in and swooped in with all kinds of socialist policies that exacerbated and elongated and made the Great Depression last even longer and made it even worse, but that's another story for another day. Although I've spoken about it before, and anyone with a clue knows that socialist policies and lots of government spending does not help the economy or lower inflation like we're experiencing now, but I digress. A few years later, World War II broke out. So in 1942, soon after the U.S. entered the war, the government allowed government funds to be used to help production of war implements, guns and bombs and tanks and all that kind of stuff, euphemistically and quite humorously well named by the government and others, calling it defense materials. Bombs and bullets used offensively very often by U.S. forces around the world, known as the Department of Defense. Again, another story for another day. But that is another business lesson right there, the power of naming. And we spoke yesterday, the day before, about the power of naming of this 1 year ago. I think it was on Tuesday we talked about it. That was marked the 1 year anniversary of the passage of this Inflation Reduction Act, which of course was a great name to get people rallying behind it. And of course had nothing to do, not only did not reduce inflation at all, but it likely made that even worse. It was, of course, the Green New Deal in disguise, all this BS hoax about man-made climate change, the end of the world, all that BS, so that the politicians could grease the palms of all their donors by scaring people and thinking there's an existential threat and, oh, it's hotter or colder or windier or more floods than there's ever been, none of which, of course, are anywhere near true. But I digress. Back to the history of the SBA and the SBA loan program more specifically. A couple years later, during World War II, in anticipation of the end of the war and lots of vets coming home, the government put a program together to allow government funds to be loaned to veterans to start businesses. And then we had the booming economy of the 50s, partly as because of that. And then the country went into the crapper again in the late 70s, thanks to the Jimmy Carter years, very similar to what's going on now. I mean, there's a big question which of these two, the current administration or that one, was a total disaster, was more of a disaster. But anyway, on those Carter days, they made some improvements to the SBA loan program. It was now called the SBA since 1953. With the Small Business Act was the creation of the Small Business Administration, and they made some improvements in the late 70s to make it easier for businesses to get loans. Then had a big crisis, the George Bush savings and loan crisis. That I don't think had any major changes, but the next time the economy went in the crapper with the recession of 2008, spurred in 2009 some more improvements to the SBA loan program to make it easier and guarantee more loans and all that kind of stuff. And then just now, a couple weeks ago, beginning of August, new regulations came down from the SBA because, once again, the economy is in the crapper. and completely challenged and crappy, and it sucks. And so therefore, the SBA comes swooping in again, and this time it's their most and best, if you ask me, improvements they've ever made. So check it out if you want, if you've ever looked into getting an SBA loan, but haven't for various reasons. Some of those problems may have been solved by these new regulations. Go figure. There's an exception to every rule, and as a general rule, small business owners can never depend on or look to, not that anybody can, the government to help them. It's not why we started a business. We didn't start a business to say, gee, I want to become a ward of the state, please help me. However, this time, these new regulations came down a couple weeks ago. Government, first of all, they increased the maximum amount that you can get in SBA loans. They made the underwriting process easier and quicker, more like a normal loan you would get from a bank instead of the heinous, outrageously ridiculous, cumbersome SBA rules and regulations. Now I have a good friend who has a company, he's had it for years, helping business owners get these SBA loans because the process is so cumbersome and ridiculous, and we'll see how he pivots now that the whole thing has become easier. I don't think he'll go out of business, but easier than ever to get these loans. They also gave the complete decision-making up to the banks that are actually processing these loans. And so no longer SBA government approval, which slowed everything down and, of course, made the whole thing worse because the government was involved. Gee, by definition, that makes anything worse. And what's another thing? There's a couple other things they did. So trying to think of all of them, but you can go check it out. And if you've looked into getting an SBA loan before, but it was too much trouble or took too long or you couldn't get enough money or for any other factors, you might want to check into it again. Good news there. When the economy starts going haywire, and we had record high inflation a couple years ago, which the current administration loves to tout how, inflation has slowed and gone down. And yeah, notice how they don't say, but it's down to normal. Or we've had deflation and prices could possibly ever get back to where they were. No, everything's costing way, way, way more than it used to, a lot more than the official like 3.5% nonsense. Do you think gas is up 3.5%? Groceries, food, restaurant prices for anything, 3.5%? Give me a break. Anyway, speaking of a break, the government has done just that with these new SBA loan regulations. Sharp entrepreneurs know that one big reason for starting a company is now you get to use other people's money to build your business. A lot smarter than bootstrapping, unless you're made of money. A lot smarter than bootstrapping, even if you are. Use that money to invest into your advertising and marketing. But still, I mean, get other people's money. That's one of the biggest reasons you start a business, and one of the best skills that any entrepreneur can develop is the skill of, we're all in sales, but instead of just selling your product or service, how about selling your vision, selling your plan to potential investors, including banks, including the SBA, and including angel investors and VCs, venture capitalists, and on and on and on, so that there are plenty of people out there that if you have a compelling vision and can explain it persuasively, they're more than happy to help you reach that a heck of a lot faster and a heck of a lot surer than you ever can, just using your own money or bootstrapping and depending on revenue to be able to fuel the business. If you're doing that, you probably have experienced, as I have more than once, trying to do it that way and screwing up the business, because slow growth or fast growth can kill a business when you're underfunded. Undercapitalization, lack of cash flow and lack of cash is the by far number one killer of businesses, number one reason businesses go under. So by all means, you want to get really good at convincing other people with money, including banks, including government, who just made it easier with these new SBA regulations, to give you, lend you, invest with you some of their money so you can help more people help yourself, help your family, hire more employees, help them and their families, and do a lot of good. If starting a business, hopefully, ideally, pretty much by definition, unless you're a shyster and a ripoff artist, your plan is to solve some kind of problem and to help people. So why not help more of those people more quickly, including yourself, by getting real good at convincing other people with money that you can use their money to help grow your business. Check out the SBA loan program if you have not in the past couple of weeks. You might be very pleasantly surprised. And that'll do it for Throwback Thursday, August 17th, 2023. Thanks for being here today, and I'll catch you tomorrow with another in our multi-part series on the fantastic foundational book, The Magic of Thinking Big by Dr. David J. Schwartz. See you then. Bye-bye.